Okay, bless. Hey, Yomi. Hey, Sunny Days. Don't we all, Yomi? Hey, everybody. Hey, Budget. What's up, family? What's up, family? Hey. Right, y'all. Title of this video is Conformity. You don't know what that is. It's basically like people in the group, they just, do what everybody else doing just because everybody else doing it. So I'm going to give an example of that. Where everybody, everywhere else beeping, we can sit over here chilling when no one's bothering us. Do it. Okay. I'm going to give a little example of conformity. Shout out to Mohammed. This video. For example.
Set up a hidden camera experiment. To answer that question, we set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up to the sound of this tone. Simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking, set up a hidden camera experiment to see if this woman would stand up at the sound of this tone. Simply because everyone else is. You might be thinking you'd never go along with this. Or would you? After just 3 beats, and without knowing why she's doing it, this woman is now conforming perfectly to the group. But what happens if we take the group away?
Elaine, please.
Okay, now she's alone. The crowd is gone and nobody is watching her except our hidden cameras. What do you think she'll do? She's now conforming to the rules of the group without them even being there. Now, watch what happens when we introduce another outsider who doesn't know the rules.
Have a seat and they'll be out in just a couple minutes. Thanks so much. Everybody was doing it, so I thought I was supposed to.
Think she'll teach the new guy what to do? We kept the cameras rolling as more unsuspecting patients arrived. And slowly but surely, what began as a random rule for this woman has now become the social norm for everyone in this waiting room. Here to explain what's going on in their brains is Jonah Berger of the University of Pennsylvania.
This sort of internalized form of herd behavior is part of what we call social learning. Starting at a very early age, when we see members of our group perform a task, our brains literally reward us for following in their footsteps.
When I saw everybody stand up, I felt like I needed to join them. Otherwise, I'm like excluded. Once I decided to go with it, then I felt much more comfortable.
Conformity is how we become socialized, but it can also cause us to develop bad habits or repeat past wrongs.
And it's why even this rebel, who wasn't standing for any of this nonsense, eventually joined the ranks. And the only thing more shocking than seeing how easily conformity affects the way you act is that similar forces are subconsciously shaping the way you think right now.
Crazy, right? I'll think about that. Hey, Catherine. Somewhere, Catherine. The girl in purple wasn't. Neither was the girl. Listen, or was something else, yeah. Y'all didn't fully understand that. Slice up. We'll get it. Those will be the ones, you know. To the next one. Shout out to Question Everything, because you have to question everything. Receipts.
The Ash experiment is one of psychology's oldest and most popular pieces of research. The volunteer is told that he's taking part in a visual perception test. What he doesn't know is that the other participants are actors, and he's the only person taking part in the real test, which is actually about group conformity.
Please begin. The experiment you will be taking part in today involves the perception of line length. Your task will be simply to look at the line here on the left and indicate which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. So, for example,
the actors have been told to match the wrong lines. The volunteer will be monitored to see if he gives the correct answer or if he goes along with the opinion of the group and gives the wrong answer. In the first test, the correct answer is 2. 1. 1.
1.
2.
1. Once again, the correct answer is 2.
3.
3.
3.
3.
Yeah,
3.
yeah, 3.
The Ash experiment has been repeated many times, and the results have been supported again and again. We will conform to the group. Again, we're very social creatures. We're very much aware of what the people around us think. We want to be liked. We don't want to be seen to rock the boat, so we will go along with the group. Even if we don't believe what people are saying, we'll still go along.
1. 1. 1.
Group dynamics is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology.
1. 1.
You understand yet? Oh, Catherine. What you mean? You can't hear me? What's 1? Look out. I'm sorry. It's just, you know what? All right, let's just move on. Okay. Y'all ready to move on? I'm saying moving on into the next thing I gotta show you. That's all I said. Okay, let's talk about something else. So there was this experiment at Stanford, right? And it's basically, I mean, when you gotta look into Zimbardo, he's the guy that was like known. He like assigned the roles of guards and prisoners to these students, and they started to we're still talking about conformity, right? They started to act that way. So this is just like a perfect example of, it's just crazy when you see it. Like just think about it, you know, take it either. Shout out to the answer to 1984U. Let me rewind this so you guys see this. This is the prison experiment. Shout out to them, man. Education purposes.
I was the first one to be picked up, so they put me in a cell. They locked me in there in this degrading little outfit.
Let me check the volume. Can everybody hear this? Because I got the little thing in the background. Can everybody hear it all right? If everybody can hear this all right, let me know, please. Thank you. A little bit loud. Yeah, no. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
the first one to be picked up, so they put me in a cell. They locked me in there in this degrading little outfit.
I don't want anybody left. I gotta go. No doctor, anything. Jesus Christ.
All these people that participated in this experiment, they knew that they were participating in this experiment. This is not a real prison. This is something that they made inside of Stanford. And there was also somebody who sued them. Of course, they settled, out of court. I bet you they did. And there's another person that played a role in all of this. They're very upset. I'll find some of those videos to listen to.
I've never screamed so loud in my life. Never been so upset in my life. It was an experience of being out of control.
Stanford University, Northern California, one of America's most prestigious academic institutions, and in 1971, the scene of one of the most notorious experiments in the history of psychology.
I was interested in what happens if you put good people in an evil place. Does the situation outside of you, the institution, come to control your behavior, or does the things inside of you, your attitudes, your values, your morality, allow you to rise above a negative environment?
The negative environment Zimbardo chose to test his ideas was a prison. He would convert the basement of the university's psychology department into a subterranean jail.
We put prison doors on each of 3 office cells. In the cells, there was nothing but 3 beds, and there was very little room for anything else because they're very small. And here we had solitary confinement, which we call the hole. And the hole was the place where prisoners would be put for punishment. It was a very, very small area. When you closed the door, it was totally dark. All the guards wore military uniforms, and we had them wear these silver reflecting sunglasses. And what it does is you can't see someone's eyes, and so that loses some of their humanness, the humanity. In general, we wanted to create a sense of power. That is, the guards, as a category, are people who have power over others. In this case, power over the prisoners.
A decade earlier, psychologist Stanley Milgram had also looked at how we respond to authority. In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory.
You open those and tell me which of those works for you. Teacher, learn.
Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud, horse, rock, house. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts.
I think that's the Milgram experience. Y'all remember this, right? I know y'all seen this one.
Answer, horse.
That's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right ahead.
Let me know.
The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor, and the so-called sharks harmless.
You know, you got a shot. 180 volts.
Oh! I can't stand the pain. Let me out of here.
I'm not going to kill that man. I mean, who's going to take the responsibility for anything that happens to that gentleman? I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please. All right, next one, slow. Walk, think.
Just because someone tell you. They be like, oh, I'm just going to continue just because someone told me. That's it, told me.
Dance, truck, music.
2/3 of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow, man. I'll get on into it. He was hollering a less voltage. Can't you check in and see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis. Like Milgram, Zimbardo was interested in the power of social situations to overwhelm individuals. His experiment would test people's responses to an oppressive regime. Would they accept it or act against it? Zimbardo's experiment was conducted against a backdrop of civil rights activism and protest against them.
Protest. Everything just, and look, everything about divine is what they say. Is that what they say? Or is it just everything just coincides with everything? This is just crazy, man. Everything happened for a reason. Remember that.
Vietnam War.
There was a sense of student power, student dominance, and student rebellion against authority in general.
It was from the student body that Zimbardo selected his participants. After passing tests to screen out anyone with a psychological abnormality, they were paid $15 a day. Each was randomly assigned to the role of guard or prisoner.
It was a prison to me. It still is a prison to me. I don't regard it as an experiment or a simulation. It's just a prison that was run by psychologists instead of run by the state.
I was 20, and that September I was going to college, and it would be nice to have a summer job, but there sure wasn't a lot of time left. And I looked in the want ads, and I found this thing which was just going to fit. It was just 2 weeks.
Then you put a uniform on and are given a job to keep these people in line, you really become that person. Once you put on that khaki uniform, you put on the glasses, you take the nightstick.
I was on.
Like security guards. Stay slow.
Summer break from my first year in college, and I was looking for a job. Had to choose between that and making pizzas. That sounded like a lot more fun. As well as running the experiment, Zimbardo took on the role of prison superintendent. He began by briefing the guards.
I said, you have to maintain law and order. If prisoners escape, the study's over, and you can't use physical violence.
You can't create excessive fear in them. You can't create the notion that their life is totally controlled by us, that there'll be constant surveillance. We have no power in the situation, and they have none.
Prisoners were brought to the basement prison, blindfolded to confuse them about their whereabouts. They were stripped and deloused.
Of course, the guards started making fun of their genitals and humiliating them. And really, it's the start of what's known as the degradation process, which not only prisons, but lots of military-type outfits use that process.
Military. Just listen to the key words. This is crazy.
When I first got here, even though I had the strip, and they would call me names, I still didn't feel at all like it was just looking at it as a job.
I recall sort of walking up and down the very short hallway, which was the prison hall, and looking in on the prisoners, and they're basically lounging around on their beds. I felt it was like a day in summer camp.
The first day, I said, this might be a very long, very boring experiment, because it's conceivable nothing will happen.
I arrived independently at the conclusion that this experiment must have been put together to prove a point about prisons being a cruel and inhumane place, and therefore I would do my part, to help those results come about. I was a confrontational and arrogant 18-year-old at the time, and I said, somebody ought to stir things up a bit here. On the second morning, the prisoners had decided to stir things up as well. The guards found some of them had used their beds to barricade their cell. Prisoner 8612 was one of the ringleaders of the rebellion.
initially I was stunned. I didn't expect a rebellion because not much happened, and it wasn't clear what they were rebelling against. But they were rebelling against the status, rebelling against being anonymous, against having to follow orders from these other students.
As punishment for the rebellion, prisoner 8612 was put in the hole, and the guards turned on the other prisoners.
The guards felt that they now had to up the ante of being tough. The prisoners made the mistake of beginning to use profanity against the guards in a very personalized way. So not against the guards, but you little punk, you big shit, and so. And the guards got furious.
Prisoners were repeatedly woken in the middle of the night. The guards made them do menial physical tasks and clean out toilets with their bare hands.
We made it a point to not give them any sense of comfort or what to expect, that anything could happen to them at any time, including being rousted from their sleep at any hour and forced to stand up in a line and have me hurl insults at them and make them do exercises. When you interrupt people's sleep, they tend to become a little disoriented. And since there was no daylight in the prison, they had no idea whether it was night or day. I think that I was the instigator of this whole schedule of harassment.
The harassment of the guards took its toll on rebellion leader 8612. He told Zimbardo he wanted to leave the experiment. Zimbardo responded not as a psychologist, but as a prison superintendent.
I said, well, I can see to it the guards don't hassle you personally. And in return, all I would like is some information from time to time about what the prison is doing. So essentially I'm saying I'd like you to be a snitch, an informer. And I said, think it over, and if you still want to leave, fine.
Confused, prisoner 8612 returned to his cell and told the other prisoners that no one could leave.
Crazy.
He believed that we wouldn't let him go, although we never said that. But the fact that he was the ringleader of the rebellion and he told the other prisoners that they won't let you leave, that really transformed the experiment into a prison.
I was told that I couldn't quit. And at that point, I just felt totally hopeless. More hopeless than I'd ever felt before.
Soon after returning to his cell, prisoner 8612 started showing signs of severe distress.
Damn it! Fucked up! You don't know, honey. God. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm burning up inside, don't you know? This is fucking ridiculous.
He came up with a plan that if he acted crazy, we would have to release him.
I'm so fucked up inside. I feel really fucked up inside. You don't know. I gotta go. To a doctor, anything. I can't think that I'm fucked up. I don't know how to explain it. I'm fucked up inside. Help me out! Help me out now!
It starts with make-believe, and then he's doing it and cursing and screaming and whatever that little boundary is that he moved across. Not that he became really crazy, but he became excessively disturbed. I mean, so much so that we immediately said we have to release him.
As an experience, it was unique. I've never screamed so loud in my life. I've never been so upset in my life. And it was an experience of being out of control.
The boundary between reality and make-believe was to become blurred even for Zimbardo. A rumor circulated that released prisoner 8612 would return with friends to liberate the remaining prisoners.
I quickly convinced myself that, my most important function was, not to allow this prison liberation to occur. And what can I do to keep my prison going, not the experiment going?
The prison was dismantled and the prisoners moved to another part of the building. Zimbardo waited in the empty corridor, preparing to tell 8612 and his friends that the study was over, when a colleague appeared and began asking questions about the scientific basis of the research.
I'm trying to get rid of him, and then he says, what's the independent variable? I get furious because he doesn't understand that there's a riot about to take place, that this prison is about to erupt. I had totally lost this whole other identity of scientist, researcher, psychologist.
The rumored jailbreak never materialized. The guards had dismantled the prison for nothing and had to rebuild it. They took their frustration out on the prisoners.
They escalated again the level of control, the level of dominance, the level of humiliating behavior.
"819 was the next prisoner to rebel against the harassment of the guards. He barricaded himself in his cell and refused to take part in the count.
You're not only not getting a cigarette, but for as long as the cell's blockaded, you're going to be in solitary to get out.
For 819's disobedience, the guards made his cellmates do mindless work. This undermined any vestige of solidarity amongst the prisoners, who now chose to accept the tyranny of the guards rather than risk further harassment.
That was one of the surprising things to me, is that there was so little that the prisoners did to support one another after we started our campaign of, divide and conquer.
Isolated and distraught, prisoner 819 told Zimbardo he wanted to leave.
While I'm interviewing 819, and saying, okay, it's all over. Thank you for your participation. I'll give you money for the whole 2 weeks, even though you're leaving early. He hears the prisoners shouting, 819 did a bad thing.
Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing. Prisoner 819 did a bad thing.
And he said, I can't leave. And he's crying. He said, I can't leave. So when you can't leave, he said, no, I have to go back because I don't want them to think that I'm a bad prisoner. And that's when I really flipped out, that in such a short time, a college student's thinking could become so distorted. I said, you're not a bad prisoner. You're not a prisoner. And this is not a prison. And it was this thing where he opened his eyes. It was just really like a cloud being lifted.
Seeing things clearly, prisoner 819 reverted to his original request and was released. To replace him, the experimenters called in one of their reserves from the standby list.
I got a phone call saying, "Are you still available as an alternate?" And cheery female secretary voice. I said, "Yes, sure." And so she said, "Could you start this afternoon?" And I said, "Yes, sure." And my role in the experiment really began. I was blindfolded and then stripped and supposedly deloused.
He came into a madhouse, full blown. All of us had gradually acclimated to increasing level of aggression, increasing powerlessness of the prisoners, increasing dominance of the guards. And he comes in and says, what's happening here at the other prison? And they said, yeah, you better not make trouble. It's really terrible. It's a real prison. And he says, I'm out of here. I don't want to. And they said, no, you can't leave. Once you're here, you're stuck. This is a real prison.
Well, one thing that you got in your hand in here, why don't you play Frankenstein? Doing that for you, you can be a brat Frankenstein. You stand here.
Prisoner 416 was soon subjected to the harassment of Dave Eshelman, nicknamed John Wayne because of his macho attitude.
Well, one second, I want you to walk over here like Frankenstein and say that you love to go down here.
I made the decision that I would be as intimidating, as cold, as cruel as possible.
I love you, Joe. Get up, girl. Get up, girl. I love you, Joe. I love you, Joe. You're fine for that, lady. Like, get down here and get push up. 2, 3.
I just watched a movie called Cool Hand Luke, and the mean, intimidating, Southern prison warden character in that film really was my inspiration for the role that I created for myself.
Why did we try to be obedient so much? It's why they try to be obedient. He was stinking wild.
He was creative in his evil. He would think of very ingenious ways to degrade, to demean the prisoners.
What if I told you to get down on that pole? And fuck the pole. What would you do then?
One of the best guards, was also on that shift, and instead of confronting this bad guard, sadistic guard, essentially because he didn't want to see what was happening, he became the gopher. He would go out to get the food and things of this kind, and that left the John Wayne guard and another guard on that shift to be dominant.
We're continually called upon to act in a way that just
It's contrary to what I really feel inside. Just continually giving out shit. It's just really one of the most impressive things you can do.
416, while they do push-ups, you sing Amazing Grace. Ready? Down. Hey, keep going. Grace. That's on your own.
The madness of the experiment started to affect prisoner 416.
Oh, red like me. Keep going. I began to feel that I was losing my identity until finally I wasn't Clay. I was 416. I was losing my number, and 416 was going to have to decide what to do.
Prisoner 416 decided to go on a hunger strike.
They were pushing my limits, but here was a thing that I could do that could push their limits. After I had missed a couple of meals, I saw that this was not a matter of indifference to the guards. I was making headway. They were upset.
I thought, how dare this newcomer come in and try to change everything that we had worked for the first 3 days to set up, and by God, he's going to suffer for that.
Get that right.
Frustrated by his continued defiance, John Wayne threw prisoner 416 into the hole. After punishing the other prisoners for his disobedience, John Wayne encouraged them to vent their anger at 416 directly.
Thank you, 416. Okay, so now thank you, 416.
We would use our nightsticks to bang on the door, and we would kick the door so hard that it must have shaken him very seriously inside, scared the life out of him.
He yelled at me and threatened me and actually sort of smashed a sausage into my face to try to get me to open up. But I didn't have any intention of eating until I was out. Okay.
416 should have been at some level a hero, because he's willing to oppose the authority of the system. In fact, the prisoners accept the guard's definition of him as a troublemaker.
I remember some of them saying, would you eat, goddammit? We're sick and tired of this. And, that was proof that, there was no solidarity. There was no support between the prisoners. While 416 was still in the hole, John Wayne made a final attempt to break him by giving his fellow prisoners a choice. They could vote to release him by making a small sacrifice.
You can give me the blankets
Sacrifice.
and sleep on the bed.
Don't forget to listen to all these key words, right? It's just crazy, right?
Or you can keep your blanket, and 416 will stay in another day. Now, what would it be? What would it be over here? How about 546? Well, there's my blanket, Mr. Jordan. You don't work on it. We got 3 today for keeping the blanket. We got 3, guess what? Keep your blanket. 416, you're going to be in there for a while. So just get used to it.
The study showed that power corrupts, and how difficult it is for people who are the victims of abuse to stand up and defend themselves. Why doesn't anybody who is being abused by a spouse or something like that just say stop it? And we realize now that that's not as easy as it sounds. By the end of the 5th day, 4 prisoners had broken down and been released. 416 was on the 2nd day of his hunger strike, and the experiment still had another 9 days to run. At this point, a fellow psychologist visited Zubada's basement prison and would witness the brutality of the experiment firsthand.
The guards had lined up the prisoners to go to the toilet, had bags over their head, chains on their feet, and were marching by. And I looked up and I saw this circus, this parade. And I said, hey, Chris, look at that.
I looked up and I just began to feel sick to my stomach. I had this just chilling, sickening feeling of watching this. And I just, I just turned away. And I just let loose in this emotional tirade. I just lost it. I was angry, scared. I was in tears.
And I'm furious. I'm saying, you're supposed to, we had a big argument. You're supposed to be a psychologist. This is this interesting dynamic behavior in such a few days. But I'm going through this whole thing, the power of the situation. Says, no, it's that young boys are suffering, and you are responsible for letting it happen. I said, oh my God, of course you're right.
The next day, Zimbardo ended the experiment. Studies like his stimulated heated debate about the ethics of using human subjects.
Clearly, young men suffered verbally, physically. Prisoners felt shame in their role. Guards felt guilt. So in that sense, it's unethical. That is, nobody has the right, the power, the privilege to do that to other people.
In the wake of experiments like Zimbardo's and Milgram's, ethical guidelines changed, introducing greater safeguards to protect participants. In the Stanford experiment, Zimbardo might have spared his volunteers distress had he not taken on a dual role in the study.
If I was going to be the prison superintendent, I should have had a colleague who was overseeing the experiment, who was in a position to stop it at any point, or I should have been the principal investigator and get somebody who was going to be the prison superintendent. I realized that was a big mistake, to play both those roles and be shifting back and forth.
After the experiment, Zimbardo brought all the participants together to talk about their experiences. John Wayne would now come face to face with the hunger striker he had tormented.
I was a little worried. I said, oh my God, he's really going to come down on me hard now that we're on equal footing.
It harms me. How did it harm you? How does it harm you? Just the thing that people can be with it? Yeah. It let me in on some knowledge that I've never experienced firsthand. Because I know what you can turn into. I know what you're willing to do.
When I look back on it now, I behaved appallingly. It's just horrid to look at. I think I tried to explain to him at the time that, what you experienced and what you hated so much was a role that I was playing, but that's not me at all.
He was trying to dissociate himself from what he had done. That did make me angry. Everyone was acting out a part, playing a role. Prisoners, guards, staff, everyone was acting out a part. It's when you start contributing to the script, that's you, and thus it's something you should take responsibility for.
I didn't see where it was really harmful. It was degrading, and that was part of my particular little experiment to see how I could. Your particular little experiment. Yeah, why don't you tell me about that? I was running little experiments of my own. Tell me about your little experiment. Okay. I'm curious. I wanted to see just the kind of verbal abuse that people can take before they start rejecting, before they start flashing back.
If I have any regret right now, it's that, I made that decision because it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had I not decided to force things. It could be that I only accelerated that the same things would have happened, but we'll never know.
If the extreme nature of Dave Eshelman's behavior tested the prisoners, it also presented the other guards with a choice to intervene or not.
It surprised me that no one said anything to stop me. They just accepted what I said, and no one questioned my authority at all. And it really shocked me. And why didn't people? When I started to get abuse people so much, I started to get so profane that, and still people didn't say anything.
There were a few guards who hated to see the prisoners suffer. They never did anything which would be demeaning of the prisoners. The interesting thing is, none of the good guards ever intervened in the behavior of the guards who gradually became more and more sadistic over time. We like to think there is this core of human nature that good people can't do bad things and that good people will dominate over bad situations. In fact, one way to look at the Stanford prison study is that we put good people in an evil place, and we saw who won. Well, the sad message is, in this case, the evil place won over the good people.
It did show some very interesting and maybe some unpleasant things about human behavior. It seems like, every century, every decade that we go through, we're suffering the same kind of atrocities. And you need to understand why these things happen. You need to understand why people behave like this.
Excuse me. Crazy, right? Crazy how somebody could just tell you anything. Y'all good? Catherine, what are you saying? What are you saying? Catherine, what are you saying? What do you mean 1970s? Explain that, please. Explain your comment, because you just said 1970s. I figure out what you're talking about. Oh my God, what? I just want to know the comment 1970s and that's all. What are you talking about? Back then? You're talking about back then? Or what? When the experiment happened or what? What are you saying? 1972. Slice. Facts. Yeah, okay. Get it right though, 1972. You knew. I don't remember you. I remember you. Yeah, see a couple times. You ain't been here long enough to have a wrench. So, trying to figure out who you are. So what's up? We gotta check them in the door now. Should have checked you in the first place, asked questions about you, but you're here, you've been here. I'm just trying to figure out why you don't have a wrench. That's all. So, wonder how long you've been around. Or what's up? That's all. You could type something. Hey, big dog. What's up, man? Catherine. Big dog, type something in the chat. Type something in the chat real quick, please, big dog. Big dog, type something in the chat. Yomi, what you mean? I see one comment, I see another one, like, what? Like that? She's good. Not enough for rich though. Oh my goodness. Y'all funny. Y'all funny. Oh, big dog, I just asked you to type something. I want to see how long it takes somebody to type something. She's over there thinking. You know. You listening for a while now, okay. When? Since when? That's all I want to know. Since when? That's all I want to know. It's a delay? Yeah, I know it's a delay. I'm right here on my cell phone too. Ain't that much of a delay. So I'm asking her. You was a wrench before? I took away everybody wrench. Would you wrench last night? I went in there, I deleted some more people. That's all. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take me a wrench. Apologize. Catherine. All day, big dog. Oh, okay. Okay, yo, man, I hear you. talking to Catherine now. It's January. Right, Terry. Okay. I just wanted to know. That's all. Got a lot of people scaries over here in this room right now. Is that what's going on? I'm not talking to you, Catherine. I'm talking to the chat. I'm talking to my wrenches. People scaries in here? Let's grandma. Hey. Are there some people scaries in here? Let me know. Okay, Suddy. Gotcha. Yeah, peeping scaries. You know, the ones that just watch, but don't be in the chat. It look like there's some people scaries in here. You don't gotta say nothing about that, Catherine. That's probably why you don't got shit rich. You be here typing too much. I don't need to know that. Subscribe to who you want to subscribe to. Subscribe who you want to subscribe to. That shit don't matter to me. I don't give a fuck. Don't care about that. I'm gonna time you out. You should know enough to not type any names in here. So we're gonna sit down for 300 seconds. You family, they say you family, but you don't get a wrench yet. I'm gonna time you out for a little bit. I don't like people you don't gotta say nothing. Now, when 300 seconds is over, come back right. That's all, man. Shit, man. Damn. This is me being nice. What I'm doing, what I'm doing over here, I'm cutting the grass. You know what I mean? I'm cutting the grass. That's all. There's shit wrong with that. You can still. I'll give you some timeout music, Catherine. Don't get offended. Protocol. I'll give you some timeout music.
Hand to hand, Sam.
That's right. I got hella flow. 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 Yeah, no, keep it on the flow. Been about my sister, since a young one, I shine. Got the antidote. Yeah, I got hella flow. I got hella flow. Got it. No, keep it on the flow. You know it. Been about my sister, young and locking my shine. Let it go. Niggas wanna rap now, lead to a vet, pull a car, check it out, charge it for a match. Me? Nah, let it move on. I'm tuck you good, but I let it do wrong. Work. Counting on the win, never lose hand. I walk in, go start choosing. Feel like the man of the year. Get schoolboy QN. You just watch for the boy, just do it. Man, I'm on the road, so I gotta keep moving. Finger roll to the hole, that's how you used to it. My niggas 5 rounds, I don't know who shoot. Oh, nothing on the grass, girl, found me a snake. A little bit of envy with a little bit of hate. So I switch lanes and I let them on the shake. Spin around too fast, like swim on his face. I got hella flow. 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 I got hella flow.
I got hella flow. Been spitting hot fire on through the roads, got hella haters. Jumping through roofs, it was all our names, and stepping on my toes, got hella cash. You can't stop that, make hella moves. Touch money every day. I find tell what you can shit, hella pay, got hella flow. I ain't do little man. If I can see my dealer spending money in the plan, I got hella lanes. In my ear one drum, I ain't trying to my time. My hands only working if you're talking dollar signs. I was good for this. Got hella plans. Can you tell who's a friend or a foe from his man? Got hella fans. Who would do it if I asked it? Face fucked up, no view, no casket. I ain't really tripping because I can't know mine. No cash, ain't no time, got hella close. The delivery is offered, just got no lip proof. We can't soft shit. Looks like he called me a fan. But every time I see him, he asks me to go fight for him and his friends. Claiming that he hardcore to the boys. Scared for the chick, got planned for the toys. Bang, bang on a cluster. Who will ain't real, can't trust you.
I got hella flow. 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 I got hella funny. I just wanna rap fucking bullshit. You know who this is, just in case you don't. It's just quick content that I got hella flow. I should have moved up a long time ago. My niggas please I head up and then go home and try to play me out. Oh no, you won't. Well, I suppose that I can't impose. See what I suppose is so crucial. It's crazy how these rhymes be inside right through my mind. And even though I'm told it, I'm still getting sexy. I'm still getting high. Let me push it up. Moves don't fly or count to me. Superstar that words me. I do this, so take notes for me. On fire, smell like gasoline. No cosign for stand on me. I'm Ice Cube, and that's what I see. 2 PAC on my POV. Open the beat to my brand new beat with that flow with me in the rubber speed. When I get her home, I'm rapping her old ramen no bleach. You should wind that style. When I get her home, I'm rapping her old ramen no bleach. You should wind that style. I got hella flow. 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 I got hella flow.
Somebody escaped the timeout corner. You know, ran off. Probably ran over there. Look, y'all. Terry, while you over there cleaning, I'm over there cleaning house, okay? Listen to what I'm saying. I'm just chilling. I'm watching, observing, and listening. Don't nobody tell me what to do. Okay? I do what I want to. When I want to. And nah, no, listen. Sweet, she said sweet. Oh, I mean, gotta question everything, huh? Questions. And question this, question that. You gotta ask a whole bunch of questions. So you get some answers. You gotta see receipts. You gotta ask a whole bunch of questions when you fucking meet people now. You gotta ask them, are you a Mason? Where are we at on the 6th? Like, you gotta really ask people questions. It's crazy. You understand what I'm saying? It's just, it's crazy. Don't sleep on me. Stay woke. Please.
You know I had to do it on you motherfuckers like this, right? Back again, more homegirl. I was trash. I'm always at my best. When I'm writing, only thing you remember those attention like grinding. Went to the basic bottom air press yesterday. So today I'm gonna make chips like a lick close a cake. Got the in my pocket, say rough that's for my fingers. Now these words be my name like but I'll be smoke your thing. I'm after that person. Buy some more, send them over. I'm not with no money. My feelings only working if you're talking all the time. I'm always looking around. You know we don't get happen. And then we're all over the place. Even when we don't back them. I got my paper name. Straight on my cheese and Virginia's that I come off the shelf every day.
Slice slow. Save our children.